So call to order. Please rise with the allegiance. I, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So welcome to our July 17th, or July 17th, 13th, Tiverton School Committee meeting. And I ask for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any objections? I'll take that as unanimous.
Dr. Larkin, I'd like to make a motion to move up 5C.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
Mrs. Palish,
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we are on item number 5C, review of the 2021-22 school calendar with consideration of other religious holidays. Dr. Sanchioni, I'll turn the floor to you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Locke. I'm going to share my screen with you and just show you the calendar that you have approved up to this time. And I believe you all can see that there. Yep, okay, great. And so I know we're talking, well, let's just talk at what it is right now. Right now, the first day of school is scheduled for September 7th. The last day of school is June 17th, which is a Friday. Everything else in between is pretty self-explanatory. They're either days of school, they're vacation days, or they're PD days. And June 17th gets us to the required 180 days of instruction. So why don't I pause there and open it back to you, Dr. Larkin, for what needs to be discussed.
Okay, so we had a request from Sina Franklin, a community member. I believe she's in the room. I see you. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for hearing me tonight, and thanks for moving myself up on the agenda. That's great. So I'm just respectfully asking
Sina,
that.
can you just hold on? Sina.
Sure.
Peter, could you stop sharing the screen so I can see Sina?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Sina. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Deb, no, that's okay. So I'm here to respectfully ask that you change the first day of school. It falls on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is one of two of the most significant holidays in the Jewish calendar, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is 2 days. I'm not asking to change or cancel school for both days, but I think given how challenging last year has been with the pandemic and hybrid and remote and the crazy, bizarre learning kids have had to do, and the fact that the first day of school is such a significant day. I know it was for our daughter, and even though my daughter's long past the school system, the holidays are a really important time, and I always pulled her out for Rosh Hashanah. I always pulled her out for Yom Kippur. I'm not suggesting that you change the whole calendar for all those days, but given that the first day falls on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, anyone who observes will have to miss the first day of school or make a really hard choice, and that doesn't feel equitable to me. So that was sort of my reasoning, and I want to put it out for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Sina. So in order to open the discussion, we should really have a motion on the floor. And I'm not exactly sure how we would frame the motion, but if anyone would like to make one, I can imagine.
I'd like to make a motion to discuss the possible change of the first day of school, the date of the first day of school. Can we word it that way?
I think if I was going to, that's just making a motion for discussion, which we don't need to vote.
Right. No, just
Okay.
discussion only, discussion purposes, I said.
Yeah, I guess I would ask for motion to have the superintendent report back to us regarding changing the first day of school. That could be the motion, and then we can revise it as we see fit. If someone could second that, I'll make the motion.
I guess, yeah, I mean, I'll make that motion if that's what the motion you want to get the discussion going, sure.
Yeah.
So the motion is for the superintendent to report back to us on moving the first day of the school calendar. I would like that to be date specific because this is very time sensitive, but we can do that at a later, I guess, later in the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to be more specific about what I'm asking? Would that help?
No, we know.
Okay,
I think we know. Don't we know?
okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Very
be clear and
Thank you.
follow
Yes, no,
Robert's
that's
rules.
fine, Sina, that's fine.
Okay,
All right. So Deb's made a motion. If I could get a second, we could get the ball rolling, I
I'll
think.
second that. I'll second
Okay.
it.
All right. So Sina, maybe you could actually be a little bit more specific in what the ask is, if there is an ask.
sure. There is an ask. The ask is to start school not on September 7th, but on the following day, on the 8th, which is the second day of Rosh Hashanah, which for observant Jews, it's still a holiday. Again, I pulled my daughter out, but I recognize, that I don't live in a largely Jewish community, or so I expect that, if my kid were in school, I'd have to pull her out. But the first day is such a significant day. And I'm sure that there are Jewish students. I'm sure that there are Jewish teachers who now have to make a choice. So I'm asking to move the first day to the following day.
Okay. So I'm going to open the floor to questions or comments from the committee. Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, so Sina, thank you. I mean, I would have never even thought to entertain this until I saw it. I'm not sure why maybe it's not built into the holiday. I mean, I know we have tons of other holidays and religious holidays. I know Good Friday is a holiday that's off for the schools. So I just have one question. It's only because my curiosity kills the cat. What made you think this year to come in front and bring this up? Because this is my first year here. So
Sure. I'm happy to answer that. Honestly, because my temple is in Bristol, and this is a hot button, as folks know, probably from reading the Projo. It's a hot button right now. They're probably looking at a lawsuit, is my guess. So it made me go, gee, Barney's not in class yet, you're not in school anymore. Let me look to see when the school calendar is in Tiverton. And that's where, when I identified there was an issue, I had honestly not thought about it before, because I don't have a kid in the school system anymore. But as soon as I learned that, I thought, this is my community. I want us to be inclusive. I want us to welcome all kids, no matter what their culture is. And the way it's set up right now just doesn't feel equitable.
thank you. I just was
You're very
curious
welcome.
why this year. Yeah, I just was curious. No
I didn't
fault.
think about it. Yeah, didn't think about it last year.
All right.
And it
Thank you.
doesn't always fall on the first day. It follows a Jewish calendar, so it doesn't always fall on the first day. But this year, it feels so different to me.
And so my follow-up question would be, obviously you're a member of the Jewish community. I'm not, and so I'm not pleading the fifth. Is this something that you would like to see be off regardless going forward if it falls into the school year not on the first day?
That's not what I'm asking. However, that would be frosting on the cake. Certainly, I would feel that would be wonderful. Where I lived in Massachusetts, in Milford, we just automatically closed, and it was not a large Jewish community. And that was not anything I ever asked for. It just happened. It was like, wow, this is a great reason to live here. I don't have to pull my kid out if it's during the week. But again, I'm not asking for that. I recognize that. So it's just this first day. I think it feels very significant this year. So
Thank you for answering those. Appreciate it.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Deb?
Thank you. Thank you, Sina. I had just a couple things, and I had already emailed Peter that just wanted a couple things of feedback that I wanted on. I think we're well within our rights regarding like contracts and law and all of that. regarding, being able to change the date, but I did want to just make sure Ben didn't see anything anywhere that we were missing. And then the other thing I did ask Dr. Sanchioni for, and again, understanding this is time sensitive, but I did want to give our staff, parents, even our students an opportunity to just give us some feedback if they'd like. But like I said, I do understand that it's time sensitive and that's going to have to be a very limited time frame, but I would like to at least give others that opportunity to share their thoughts with us. Other than that, I, kind of along the lines that Mike was thinking, it made me think about all of those other special times like prom or picture day or those types of things that perhaps think about having the policy committee look at putting a policy in that tries to build those sort of special days as much as possible around those significant times for, our community and different cultures. I know I saw similar policy in another district, maybe that'd be a starting place, but I had a similar thought, Sina, as far as, there are some kind of special days and you don't think about trying to honor, trying to make sure that people can be here on those special days. So those were my comments, is I just would like those two things. Thank you, Dr. Larkin.
So Jeff, can I just ask a question? So you would build a policy around what? Like what
you try to do, what the policy that I saw did, and again, that's not on the agenda, so we're not kind of going off topic here, but you try to build a policy around, significant events, whether it's Rosh Hashanah, it's there's some Hindu, and I understand it's difficult because there's so many, but you do try to be sensitive to the major holidays that different cultures celebrate when you're sort of planning these special, and it's hard because what's special, but first day, prom, 8th grade graduation, those type of things. And maybe it would be too difficult, but like I said, I did see at least one community that did try to do that. But that's not, what's on the agenda today, but.
Okay. Mrs. Pava?
I have one question, and I think I'd like to address this to Peter. If Tiverton said that they felt that this wasn't very important and we could move our first day, can one community do that, or does the whole state have to agree to change their first day of school? Because I think this is very important. I think it's very important. And, I'm looking to the future. We have a lot of special days off for the rest of the students and their families. And I think for the Jewish community, this is very important. But does the whole state have to agree to do it?
To answer your question specifically, no. When the state puts out their state calendar, they list the days that you can be in school, but they offer every community the opportunity to take other days off as they see fit.
Very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Ryan? You're muted.
Thank you. I was struggling with the mute button. Sina, thank you very much for bringing this to us tonight. I agree that I would like to hear from our teachers as well as students and parents with to get their input on this. I think it's important to hear, really what everyone would like to do, understanding, like Ms. Palash said, that it is time sensitive, but I would like to have that input, particularly from our unions. What concerns me a little bit is how far into June we're going this year, from a practical matter. Right now, this would mean that the students would be staying in school past Father's Day. and the teachers later than that. And what concerns me even more is the new holiday that's out there. Is, I know it's not yet considered a state holiday, but I don't know where we'll be at this point in the spring, and that's Juneteenth, which will be celebrated on June 20th, which could conceivably push this calendar out even more. I do, you know, we all have to recognize that, and I think it's a state mandate that we are required to start after Labor Day. Is that correct, Dr. Secchione?
Say that again, Ms. Farnsworth?
Are we required by state to wait until Labor Day to start school?
No, no,
No,
For
We've
some reason, I
started
thought that was a state mandate.
no.
no.
Okay.
We've started before Labor Day.
No, we have in the past. I didn't know if that was a new one, just like the state required full weeks of vacation in February and April. I didn't know if that was another change.
Yeah, I would say the state doesn't require, the state puts out a state calendar and districts are allowed to adopt it or not adopt it. The beauty behind it is that you have many teachers who live in other communities. By being consistent across the state, you allow for childcare and greater flow, and communities can get together for PD and things of that nature. So it has the advantages that way, but it's not required.
Do we have any option to push back the beginning of school to the week before?
And so while some other districts have done that, and if I share my screen with you again, I'll bring that calendar back up and again for your consideration. You know, some communities have considered, if I start where we are, our welcome back day for the teachers is August 31st, and then we have PD scheduled for the 1st and 2nd of September. We had the 3rd, that Friday, off. That could be a school day. Some communities have chosen to have school on the 3rd. That would be the first day. Then, you know, people would be off for the Saturday, the Sunday, the Monday, which is Labor Day, and then Tuesday. And then our second day of school would be the 8th. And again, that would preserve the last day of school being on a Friday instead of moving it into a Monday. And I always make this point. I mean, my view is always, as an educator, to recommend to you what's in the best interest of our students. A day in September is always much more valuable than a day in June, because of the fact that SAT and AP test and that ICAS tests are all scheduled. That scheduled dates for those tests never change. And so you can get 100 days of instruction before them, or you can have 99 days or 98 days or 97 days. But we all know every day of instruction is important. So, if we could, and I'll just put that out there for your consideration, if that's an option you might want to consider, is making the 3rd a day of school and taking the 7th off.
I hadn't thought about it before now, but I would certainly be willing to consider that as well, so that we're kind of leaving that June timeframe the way it is. Certainly wanting to be respectful of what everybody prefers we do. So will you be able to reach out to the staff and to allow for student and family input on this?
I certainly can put out a survey to people as you see fit. Again, I think, we're mid-July right now. I'm not sure, again, what's that data going to actually, is that going to actually change what you're going to do here? I think you really just need to, you have a great request. And if you're going to honor that request, then it's really, do you want to start school on the 3rd, or do you want to, add a day, June 20th? That really becomes your options.
So are you thinking, Peter, I'm sorry, Diane. Go ahead. I would be more than happy to propose that we start on the 3rd. Again, I just want to make sure that the staff is on board with this.
Why?
And if they are, then that's, to me, the easiest the easiest way to address this.
Okay, so to be clear, are you asking me to survey options here, to start on the 3rd or to start on the 8th? Is that the choice we're going after?
I think Diane's really just, making her comments.
Just making my comments, right. I did not make a motion. And I don't know what everyone else has to think. This is truly the time for us to be collaborative and talk about this.
Okay, anything else, man?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. So I guess that leads me. My view is, this is a relatively unusual event in that the first day of school falls on Rosh Hashanah. I think it's statistically, or by the virtue of the calendar, it's a lunar calendar versus the, we're generally driven by Labor Day and the summer and that type of thing. The coincidence is not too likely to happen again. So I think this is an instance where we probably should do this. I think it's attractive to make right now we're talking about a 4-day holiday, or a 4-day gap between the last professional or second professional day and the start of school. We can frame shift that, make Friday the first day of school, and then they have 4 days off, I guess, to kind of recover from the first day of school, which I don't know how many days they'll need from the second day of school, but at least they'll have 4 days from the first day of school to recover. And, that seems not a logistical nightmare, to use too negatives. And I guess that's my question for Peter. Is that a logistical nightmare, or does that seem a reasonable way of approaching the issue? I mean, the teachers are going to be, in professional development for 2 days, and then they'll be off for 4 days. This way they'll be in professional development for 2 days, in school for a day. Perhaps, there's something attractive about that as an educator, and then off for another 4 days. That seems to me a reasonable way of approaching it. And then we'll see what people think. But I guess I would ask them to see what people think after they've experienced it. I'm not sure that, not wanting to quell public input, I'm not sure that the data that we get if we put out a survey right now beforehand will be valuable. And the reason I say that is because you're as likely to get information that, is driven by a committed minority in one way or the other, because we're asking for it in the middle of the summer, and or, if we think this is the right thing to do, even if we, will we then not do it if there's an outcry? I don't know, maybe we won't. But those are my views of it. So I guess, Peter, just to ask the question, is it a educationally fraught or a logistical nightmare to make that Friday the 3rd the first day of school, from your point of view? And then I guess I'd like to open it up to the administrators.
No, if we know it now in the middle of July, it won't be a nightmare. No, we'll be ready to go. I guarantee you the 5 principals on this call right now would all feel the same way about that. There's advantages. I mean, you start this first day of school on a Friday, you get everyone in, you get to your routines. Granted, then you're out for 4 days, but then you come back and you've started your school year. You should be right into teaching and learning and deep instruction on that first day back on the 8th. Okay. So it has some advantages. It's
Okay.
Dr. Larkin, before you turn it over to the administrators, could the committee finish their discussion?
I thought we had all spoken.
I have, but I do have some follow-up, but I can wait if you'd rather.
Nope. If anybody else in the committee has other comments, feel free to chime in now.
Yeah, I actually was just, the feedback I was looking for was that type of thing, 3rd versus 8th. But if you've obviously put some thought into this, that's fine. And the other thing is, and Peter, you probably know this, there's no contractual stipulation that we have to, because it was kind of like Diane's question, do we have to start after Labor? There's nothing contractually that would stop us from moving a day.
Nope.
Okay, that was really a question for Ben, but if you know that answer, that's fine.
We looked at it.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry, can I ask one follow-up question, please?
Go ahead.
Dr. Sanquioni, I should have said Dr. Larkin, sorry, Jerry. How long has the calendar been approved in this form, the way it is right now, for the public's consumption? Couple months?
March.
Oh, February, March.
April. Yeah, we
Okay.
usually do it, February, March.
All right, so my only concern about Friday is how many families scheduled something to go away for a weekend, maybe wherever it might be. And now we're saying that they have to be in school. I get they could do a distance learn, but probably not ideal for first day. People might already have travel plans, hotels booked, flights booked, so that part might be a little iffy
You're
for me.
probably, don't you think though, Mike, you're gonna have the same issue if we tack a day on at the end?
You make that last day of school Monday.
Yeah, I guess, but not
'Cause
too long ago, we had,
if you tack a day on and now instead of being done on Friday, you're going another Monday, I wonder the same thing if people hadn't already made vacation. I mean, unfortunately, the thing about, when you change the calendar, it changes.
sure. I before a couple of years ago, snow days just tacked days on, right? So we all had to keep that open, If you were a parent, you probably didn't schedule anything till July, right? Just in case. So, but those days are gone. I understand.
Yeah, no more snow days.
This is a new thing. So your point's well taken. I just would think Labor Day weekend is a more attractive day to go away than the first day out of school on a Monday. But only my opinion as well. But thank you.
Well, I think
Either way,
obvious-
may I say something? Either
Sure.
way, you're going to have people upset. A lot of people do their last hurrah on Labor Day weekend. Some people won't care. Some people will care. Some people won't be happy to start school on the 8th. You've got to make a decision and just stick to the decision. This has happened before. We've started school before Labor Day. People complain, how come we start school so early? We started after Labor Day. Well, we want the Labor Day weekend plus a day. We just need to make a decision and go with it. And if we're criticized, we can deal with that. Peter can deal with it. We can deal with it. I just think we should make a decision as soon as we can because it is the middle of July. It's almost the middle of July. Let parents know what we're going to do and how it's going to work. And then maybe they can adjust their plans.
I guess in a more frank way, Elaine, you stated what I was, I guess, trying to state when I said, I'm not sure doing a survey is going to be all that helpful. If we can
I
just-
don't agree with doing a survey. We'll get responses all over the place and people will want, I'm not in favor of that at all. I wouldn't vote for that. We need to make a decision as a board and superintendent and then just notify, set a new calendar if that's what we decide to do and then just go with it.
So I'm going to open the floor to our administrators. Any of you would like to speak to this? I don't see Suzette or Manny, but I see the other three here looking pleasant and quiet. Okay. I don't know if we're monitoring the public. We have Joy here. Peter.
Julie's not here, but Ally Brochu is monitoring it and
Okay. Any
There's
comments?
no questions at this time. There is one comment, if you'd like me to read it.
Yes, please.
Sure. So Christina Hallman wrote, I think it is wonderful for our community to support the Jewish faith by moving the first day of school so that it does not fall on a holy day for any religion. To add, it would really show students that all different religions and cultures are accepted and tolerated.
Thank you.
So well-spoken sentiment. All right. So I think actually at this point, what I would suggest-
Should I amend my motion perhaps?
Well, I would withdraw your motion and make a new motion to move the first day of school to,
I'll amend my motion to move the first day of school to Friday, September 3rd.
and take September 7th as a no school day.
And take September 7th as a no school day.
I will
So we're going
second
to
that.
move the no school day from September 3rd to September 7th. September 3rd will be the first day.
Okay, so the motion has been amended. I believe we actually have to vote on the amendment to follow parliamentary procedure properly. Any discussion, any further discussion on the amendment? Okay.
Did somebody second the amendment?
I did.
Yeah,
Oh,
Diane.
thank you.
I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Pavo,
Yes,
Mrs. Farnsworth,
That's Farnworth, yes.
ever. Mrs. Palish,
Mrs. Polish, yes.
Mike,
That's a good recovery, yes?
and I vote yes, so the motion has been amended. Any further discussion on the main motion to start school on September 3rd and take September 7th as a day out of school?
Yeah, I don't like that Friday, but call on me last, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, all right. Deborah,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes, sir.
Elaine,
yes,
and I vote yes. Mike, you're last.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. So we'll see how this goes.
Thank you again, Sina, for bringing that forward.
And I want to thank you for your sensitivity and your openness. And, you know, I only wish Bristol School Committee was like you. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'll leave you to your business.
Okay.
Dr. Larkin,
Yes, Dr.
I
Sankey.
may, I'd ask that you stay in new business and go to item B. We have a student and Mr. Ashley here to talk about that club.
Okay, I'll ask for motion to move up item 5B.
So moved.
Motion to move item 5D.
Oh, second?
E, okay. So moving moving item 5B motion's been made and seconded. Any opposed? I'll take that as unanimous. Okay, 5B, new proposal Confetti Club.
Hey, Mr. Ashley.
Yes, thank you. And I can see Lexi Labonte has just joined us. So we really are excited to propose this new club. And in a moment, I'm going to let Lexi speak about it. But this is an initiative from Lexi herself, who is a student at Tiverton High School, and it's called the Confetti Club. And she's partnering with Miss Richards, who is a social studies teacher of ours. And this Confetti Club is going to really work in partnership with the Confetti organization or foundation based out of Middletown to help students boost their spirits, or I should say, children on their birthdays who have to spend, unfortunately, their birthdays in hospital care. And so I want to, before I turn it over to Lexi, just give Lexi a lot of credit here. She started this idea a couple months ago. She wasn't really sure. And she took the initiative, did some research, talked to a bunch of people. And here we are tonight with this proposal. So Ms. Labonte, I'll turn it over to you. And just for the committee and audience members, if there are questions, I've been asked by Lexi to try to speak up and speak loudly because if there's soft hearing, it's a little tough for her to hear. So Lexi, if you could talk a little bit about your club.
Thank you. So these past 7 months, I've been dealing with some medical issues myself. So I've been in the hospital setting, and this club I've been following for a few years now, and this time seems perfect to help make more birthday boxes. So we could do some card making and some banner making to just create a positive environment for kids to get involved and to help locally.
Good idea, Lexi. Very good idea.
Thank you.
Boost their spirits.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lexi. Great job and all the credit for coming up with this idea. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the club.
Motion to approve the Confetti Club.
Is there a second?
Second.
So motions are made and second. I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the school committee. Mr. Dakotas.
Yes, thank you. So Lexi, this is great. I had some communication tonight with Stephanie Frazier, who started the Confetti Foundation. I'm very proud to say she is a very close friend of mine. So any help or anything you need, I can give you my email, and I'd be happy to hook you up with Steph directly. And this is something I know she wanted to say that she appreciates very much and says thank you. So what a great idea. When I saw it on there, I felt really good, because when people can see what this foundation does for children that are in hospitals, and I'm sorry you had to experience that yourself, I've seen some amazing things happen. She's a great person, and you're a great person for stepping up to do this. So thank you to you, and whatever help you need, you reach out to me, okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mrs. Fabo,
I have nothing else. Thank you.
Mrs. Polish,
I have nothing further. Thank you.
and Mrs. Farnworth.
Nothing but thank you very much, Lexi, for such a gracious idea. I wish you well with it.
And any questions or comments from our administrators? And from the public, Ally?
No questions at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. I will ask for a vote. Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Polish,
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So congratulations and thanks you very much, Lexi. Good job.
Thank you for your time.
Great job, Lexi, and I appreciate the committee support. Mr. Dakotas, yeah, that comment about supporting her. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice job, Lexi.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are back to, I think then, old business item 4A, FY22 budget update. Dr. Sanquioni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to share my screen again, bring up some slides. A lot of information that you've seen, but just an update of where we are, especially heading into the FTR coming up this weekend. And so our current budget, and again, I've showed you this slide multiple times. I just want to emphasize that, you know, our budget is growing by 1.18% or 2%, if I 1.2% if I round it off. And the thing that needs to be recognized is this line here where you see my cursor, is that state aid has been dropped by almost, I'll use round numbers, by almost $600,000. Yet we are receiving an increase from the town, $959,000. But the delta, the difference is only $380,336, which is the 1.18% increase. And that's what's really hurting us, this drop in state aid. And that drop in state aid, I know that our representative Edwards was working hard on behalf of the Tiverton Public Schools to gain us as much money as possible. And the hold harmless provision was put in place, and Tiverton was held harmless. That drop in state aid is simply because it's been determined that, you know, the wealth and the ability for Tiverton to pay toward education has grown, and it should be greater. And so we get this drop in state aid, we get this increase, yet it's 1.18%, and it leaves us in a very precarious situation. And I continue to remind people when we talk about our situation, what we've lost. And so you've seen this slide probably a dozen plus times this year. The 24.2 staff members that we had 2 school years ago didn't have this past school year, that were not even asked to come back as part of our budget request. You know, we were requesting 33.9 million, which is a level service budget, just keeping in place what we had this past year and moving it forward. And what the school committee voted, which was the maximum, was the 32.5 budget, which was approved on May 13th. And we all knew that that was going to leave us with a 1.4, almost $1.5 million deficit. And that's the situation we're facing as we sit here today. You know, we know that we have ESSER 2, we're writing the ESSER 2 grant and submitting the ESSER 2 grant. And so we have to, you know, as you've always said to us, and we know it's our responsibility to come in with a balanced budget. So if I use the 32.5 where we sit today, and I look at ESSER 2, you know, what I'm suggesting to the committee as a way to balance our budget and to deal with the deficit is to, on the left side here, place these positions using ESSER 2 funds to pay those salaries. So a guidance counselor, 2 elementary math specialists, the high school reading specialist, and the cuts we made in art, music, and PE. And then, and again, ESSER 2 wasn't a large sum of money. Used, and then to balance, we would still have to cut certain positions. And so the positions we'd have to cut where we sit today is a high school guidance position, grade 7 math, 3 Council 94 positions, the high school culinary program, a high school English position, and a middle school science position. So if we do what's on the left and on the right, then we would be balanced to a $32.5 million budget. And obviously my last line here is something that you're all familiar with, is that we can use ESSER 2. It's the same thing we've been doing when we use fund balance or Medicaid money. It's one-time money. When it runs out, it's not there anymore. It causes the structural deficit we've been trying to overcome. So I would say to the committee, these positions on the left, you know, are 1 year, maybe ESSER 3 comes in at some point and it can extend them for another year. However, in the end, that money is going to go away. And until our operating budget meets our needs, we're going to be in a tough position. So, you know, this is the recommendation right now, to balance on a $32.5 million budget.
So Peter, could you go back to that last slide and keep it up for a second?
Sure.
So just to be clear, if there was no such thing as ESSER 2, which is good that there is, but it's still not money in the bank, not only would we be cutting the positions on the right, we would also be cutting the positions on the left.
No,
That is-
no. Okay, I'm misunderstanding this. Oops.
We would need the positions on the left and the right to equal basically a
Correct,
$1.5 million cut. So
Right.
you are correct.
Right. So that just goes more towards, and how much is the ESSER 2? So those 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, those positions on the left.
Yep.
How much of ESSER 2 is being applied to those positions, and do we have full confidence that we can use that money for those positions? Because I know we have very specific guidelines as to how the money can be used.
Right. Yeah, we're more than confident we can use the money for those positions. The ESSER 2 was, and I know Amy Roderick's on the call, I think it was like 780,000.
763 and change.
763 and change. I was wishing it was 780. And
Right.
we had that requirement that we had to set aside 20% for extending the school day and summer programming. So that reduced it a little bit. We couldn't use it all for positions. You may recall when we reviewed the ESSER 2 spending plan, we had some curriculum and PD in there too, which we're required to do. But we can use a portion of it for positions. And, you know, again, we're trying to target positions that address learning loss. Not that all of these don't, but you can see that the sort of the flavor here is getting into the specialists that help kids who have struggled, and certainly cutting art, music, and PE is never in any student's best interest. So, you know, we've tried to make decisions in the best interests of our students along the way.
Okay, and can you back up a few slides to the one where you had the kind of the right there? So I think it's important for the public and for everyone to understand that our actual proposed budget for FY 21, where you see that 126,520. So our original proposed budget there was 33.1 million. The budget committee had originally voted a budget of 32.5, and then we're level funded. And that was, again, because of the uncertainty around COVID. And we chose at that time as a committee to not put a $33.1 million budget on the ballot. I would have to say in retrospect, that may have been an error. We probably should have, because while it is true that the 4% increase is in the budget committee's current budget on the ballot, that 4% is at least half of that is taken up by the cut in state aid. And so, you know, if you think of that as full funding, it's clearly not. Which I think is at least one place I saw they said, well, you know, we're fully funding things. We're not fully funding things. The budget committee approved our proposal, but our proposal fell far short of what we needed, because that's all we could ask for. And the amount of money we could ask for was actually limited by the fact that we got level funded last year. And if we had actually put that 33.1 million on the ballot and gotten it last year, we'd be in a better position. So in doing the right thing, I think in some respects, we may have done the wrong thing last year. I guess that's my point. You know, open up the floor to other committee members. Mrs. Farnworth?
I have no comments.
Ms. Palish?
Nothing at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Mr. Dakotas?
No, I would agree with what you said, Dr. Larkin, and the year before the alternate budget as well. I think that was 2019. That was first I was on the budget committee. The schools asked to be level funded that year as well, and I think that goes to the same exact scenario as you said from last year. Probably was worth asking for something then, you know, but
That was actually 2018.
18. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
So yeah, hindsight, right? It's 2020, but that's,
well, the fiscal situation. So you know that year, and I guess to be really clear, we've been pretty upfront about the deficit we were going to be facing at this point, but that was subsequent to that budget request in 2018, where we said, you know, our fiscal position was actually pretty good. We did not have the transportation special education costs that went up over the subsequent fiscal years. So it is true, we only asked for, we were trying to be, again, respectful and prudent caretakers of the people's money. And that's why we asked for no increase in 2018. And in fact, created structural deficits with our reserve balance, which is sort of seemed to be a popular thing to do among the electorate, or at least among the budget committee. So anyway, the 2019 was an alternative budget that actually did give us some rise, some increase. It was put forward by Mr. Mantel. So sorry to interrupt.
no, I had the year wrong. Your story is correct. I just had the year wrong.
Yeah.
All right, that's all. Thank you.
Mrs. Pava?
I have no comments.
And anything from our administrators? And anything from the public, Ms. Brosher?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. So the story continues. I think that's all we have for that item. All right, we are up to item 5A, middle school handbook update. Mrs. Craven?
Thank you, Dr. Larkin. I sent a version of the middle school handbook to Dr. Sanquioni. So you should all have that and should have been able to review that. The biggest changes in the middle school handbook for next year, you will see are pertaining to trimesters, which I have already spoken to all of you about, and the house organization. So next year at the middle school, we'll have a looping team in grades 5, 6, and 7, 8, where students will have the opportunity to have the same set of teachers for 2 years in 5th and 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade. Other than that, there are personnel changes, obviously, that had to be made documented in the handbook. But overall, everything else is the same.
Okay, I'll open it up to any questions from the committee. Mrs. Pava,
No, Dr. Larkin, not at this time.
Mrs. Polish,
Principal Craven, can we withhold recess if it's lunch recess? I thought, is that how, like you can't withhold recess like normal PE, but lunch recess doesn't fall in that narrow? Because I thought they had to have so many hours of.
Yeah, at the middle school, that doesn't pertain to the middle school. It's mandated that recess is an elementary school, but it doesn't, it's
Oh,
not.
so is it K through 5?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You can go on, Dr. Larkin. I'm still looking at it.
Mrs. Farnworth,
Sure. Mrs. Craven, I just heard you referencing this looping plan. And I did read about the advantages that you stated within the handbook itself. Is this like a trial concept here in Tiverton, where you're just trying it out for 1 year to see how it goes?
Yeah, I think that as you read, there are many advantages to looping, and as we think about what those advantages are, we want students to develop personal relationships with their teachers. We want to get the benefits of those relationships, and we know that educators take some time to learn about their students and their needs. And so it's not uncommon for middle schools to have looping teams. Certainly if it doesn't work, we will definitely, Mr. Ashley will obviously have that discussion. We'll be able to address that issue. But the teachers are on board with the concept, and I think we'll see great success as a result of this change.
Okay. So, why is it you're doing it for one house and not the other?
That's a great question, because obviously the house organization is, extremely important, but it just comes down to numbers in terms of how many students are on each team. So we have one team that will loop and one team that won't, and it has to do with personnel as well.
And were students picked for placement in one house over the other?
No, it's just a random assignment of students.
Okay, because my concern is that, things stay equitable within the school. And if it's random, that's one thing. You're trying something new, and I get that. I just wanted to be certain that it would be, it isn't a situation where students were chosen for one scenario or another.
No, absolutely not. And clearly, if it doesn't work for one student, those decisions would be made at the building level. So obviously, if there are issues that students have with another student, they can't be with that student for 2 years, those are building level decisions, and we would make them. So you're not stuck on a team for 2 years if there are issues that come up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I do remember you bringing the trimester plan to us a couple weeks ago. You have some co-curriculars, and you have a list of 4 co-curriculars that I, unless I'm reading it wrong, intend to somehow work into 3 trimesters. How's that going to work?
That's correct. So you're looking at art, you're looking at STEM, and you're looking at health, and they occur during the time in which teachers are in professional learning communities. And then we have a team time block where students would go out for band and chorus and general music classes. So the schedule does work, and those are year-long classes versus trimester classes.
Okay. Okay, lunch, page 20.
Page 20.
And I'm sorry, you know, I love going through these things.
I don't mind at all. I mean, I'm sure there are some with the transition. I was
And I
hoping.
probably missed stuff too, so hey.
That's okay. Go ahead.
All right, so there is a line in there, and it's not a new line.
Mhm.
It's money will not be loaned to a student to buy lunch. We have a meal policy, policy 356, and
Yep.
have you ensured that your statements in this handbook are in line with that policy?
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad you brought that to my attention because I know the lunch next year, I'm assuming Dr. Sanquioni is still free for students.
That's correct.
Yeah, so I will modify that so that it is specific to the new.
Oh, great, because that was part 2 of my question.
Yeah, nope, I'll definitely make that change. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Okay, good, good. I know Mrs. Plash already mentioned the lunch detention, and I tried finding something in state law, could not do that.
Right.
You know, state law is sometimes a little tough to find things. But I thought that 5th graders, it was a mandate that they have recess.
Not if it's in a middle school.
Okay, is that, okay. So only if they're placed in an elementary.
Correct.
And then 2 more, promise. On page 41, you speak to extracurricular activities.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just bringing it up now. I want to make sure I say it right. Item number 6, and this one is new. Students who are failing any core content academic class will not be allowed to participate in any extracurricular activities, including athletics.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say I have a concern with that one.
Okay.
Just to say that, you know, there are students who may very well be failing one class or another because it has nothing to do with their level of effort.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, they're trying the best they can, and they may very well just not be passing that class.
Right.
I would hate to see them excluded from extracurricular activities.
Yeah, so what we did, the reason why this was added was because we didn't have a policy on that, and we tried to have our school handbook model, coincide with the interscholastic guidelines on interscholastic athletics. And so we added that for that reason.
Is it just an interscholastic athletic rule? So it doesn't necessarily go to extracurriculars. It's just athletics.
It's primarily athletics. So if you don't have an objection, I would have no issue with leaving athletics and taking out extracurricular, because I do agree with you on that. That was a request of Mr. Campion, so I can certainly speak to him and make that modification.
Yeah, especially I'm thinking like school dances and field
Absolutely.
what have you, and it seems a little punitive, especially for middle school kids who may very well be trying the best they can.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, and the last one is just if you could, and I know you've done this before for this committee, although I think it may have predated Mr. Dakotas. You had done a discussion about restorative practices.
Mhm.
And it is taking front and center in the back half of your book.
Yes.
So, if you could just kind of bring it to us, what is the thinking behind introducing restorative practices? And I did have one specific question that you may want to take a look at the wording of a sentence. And this one had to do with the family group decision-making in your infractions and consequences section, that you refer to that type of counseling where a school resource officer would be giving a presentation. And is that true 100% of the time?
Not necessarily 100% of the time. So the work that you'll see in the behavior matrix, in the modifications that were made, obviously we want things to be less punitive, right? And so the language that you see is more about mediation, family group discussions, and thinking about how relationships can be restored from one student to another versus like we're suspending you, we're throwing you out of school, you're going to have lunch detention. And it's really about being a more collaborative school. And so that's the idea behind restorative. It's like having the students take ownership for the decisions that they make, and really thinking about those decisions and how they can mend the relationships that they've broken.
Okay, thank you. Now, again, the one line item that I wanted to call out was in the section that speaks to family group decision-making and group counseling. This was on page 53.
Okay.
It says the problem is outlined by the school resource officers, members of the social emotional team. And my only concern is that people read that to say that the school resource officer would always be involved in that type of family group decision-making, family group counseling.
And
wording thing.
Yeah, and so you're speaking about the diversion program specifically on page 50?
Just above the diversion program.
Okay.
Got a couple of groups of bullets, top of the page.
Yes, okay. I see what you're speaking about. That can definitely be modified. I agree with that.
Just to not make it such as a definite, if you will, that, I certainly understand there would be times, but I also wouldn't expect that a school resource officer would be involved in every single counseling interaction.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you very much. You've been very helpful.
You're welcome.
Even though you're on mute, Jerry, I know you called.
I'm off mute now.
I'm a lip reader. Thanks for all the questions from Ms. Farnworth. I did learn a lot just there, and I was actually reading it as we were going. I would like to see school committee member Mike Dakotas added to second page in place of the legend Sally Black. Other than that, I will read this as I get more time, unless you want me to come with my wig next time.
No problem. Like I said, as we transitioned, there were obviously some things that were missed along the way. So my apologies, Mr. Dakotas.
Oh, no, I'm not offended at all. I thought it was a great place to insert a joke, but I will read it more as I get time, and I will ask any more questions as I see fit. But thank you.
You're welcome.
And any questions from our administrators or the public? Okay, I believe we typically vote on these.
Can I just ask, Principal Ashley, did you have anything that you wanted to add with the restorative practices? I know you probably have had some experience with that in the past as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I have reviewed the changes. I'm in full support of them. My accolades to Ms. Craven and her team for making these changes, and absolutely on the restorative practices, as it says, it's all about restoring those relationships, right? And making, when students make poor decisions, it's exactly that, right? It's a poor decision. It's about restoring those relationships and learning from them so that they don't repeat them. And so I'm excited for it, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Larkin, may I suggest that we give Mrs. Craven the opportunity to make the updates that she has indicated she will do, and then bring it back to us for a vote at our next meeting? Would that be okay, Mrs. Craven and Mr. Ash?
I'm sure Mr. Ashley can make the changes to the handbook and bring it to you at the next meeting, now that I have presented it. And so they're very small modifications, but certainly easy to do. And I will work with Mr. Ashley, but he can certainly present it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Okay, let's do that then. All right, we're up to item 5D, recommendations for COVID mitigation for next school year. Dr. Sanquioni?
Thank you, Dr. Larkin. And recommendations may be too strong of a term right now. I think it's understanding all the options that we have in front of us. And the reason I'm going to speak to it and not even give you a PowerPoint or anything in black and white is because it's still being decided. But what I want to share with the committee is what the current CDC guidelines are for school starting in the fall. And certainly we're mid-July, still what, 7-8 weeks before school starts. As we've learned from this pandemic, a lot can change between now and then. So we're going to certainly put our best thinking to this and make certainly have this ready to go for the school committee meeting in August to update you on our actual plans. But the CDC guidelines as of today are: vaccinated teachers and students do not need to wear masks in school. Conversely, unvaccinated students and staff need to wear a mask in school. It's being recommended that we continue to have 3 feet of separation between all of our students while they're in school, especially students who are not vaccinated. We know now that the students up to age 12 have not been vaccinated, which is our grades K through 7. And so our principals will be prepared at the elementary and middle school level to continue to have that 3 feet of separation amongst those students. A change for the mask and change for the better is that even at the lower elementary level and middle school, no masks are required at recess in all outdoor situations. So that can be dropped. The masks are just required to be worn inside if you're not vaccinated. CDC is requesting that we continue testing, although they suggest that fully vaccinated staff and students do not need to be tested. So we've seen RIDE put out some opportunities for schools to start doing both asymptomatic and symptomatic testing, but there's a lot more information we need to glean and learn about that. I come back to the mask. It's required, and this is K-12, that masks be worn on buses. And that's a federal requirement. And I don't see that being alleviated before school starts. CDC and RIDO are also allowing districts to work on the quarantine period. This is something that Tiverton adopted late in the spring, because certainly we want our students who are well back in our classes as soon as possible. So we'll continue with the 7-day quarantine with a negative test administered after or on day 5. So if a student has to be quarantined, if they get a test on day 5, 6, or 7, they can return to school on day 8. And then the last thing worth mentioning is if a student maintains consistent physical distance while in school, which is the 3 feet, close contacts will only be for those students not vaccinated. So if we do have a student who comes in and has COVID, and we maintain the 3 feet of separation, just like we did this year, it'll be a small group of students who will be considered close contacts. However, vaccinated students would not be part of those close contacts. So there's a lot there to digest. I know as an administrative team, we've just scratched the surface. We need to spend a lot of time together talking about this and coming back to you. But those are the current guidance that's been given to us, and most likely will be something we're bringing back to you for implementation on that first day of school.
So, Peter, I have a couple quick questions if I can before the rest of the committee. So the issue of masks on buses, that is for both vaccinated and unvaccinated?
That is correct.
Okay. You said that was a federal regulation or that was a CDC recommendation?
According to the CDC documentations that I've received, they list it as a federal like a federal law almost. So I can provide that documentation to the committee, but that's the way that they've authored it.
Okay. And then in terms of, I was actually did ask Peter to put this on because I thought we needed to at least start the discussion as early as possible, just to have parents understand where we were going. I think it's one thing that we can say for sure is that things are likely to change. They may get more restrictive, they may get more permissive. The has RIDE or DOH for that matter given us any kind of a calendar where they say on this day we will kind of give summary recommendations or preliminary can imagine them saying on August 10th we're going to give you preliminary recommendations that you can sort of start to implement, and then we'll get final recommendations on August 25th or something like that. Is there any kind of calendar like that? or-
No. What I can tell you is that we were supposed to have what they call these pod meetings. All the principals attend them with me, where we get updates from Rido. And there was supposed to be one today, and they delayed it to next week. So we'll be on that call next week. I suspect that that's going to be a day when we get some definitive answers on certain things. But to your question, no, we don't have any other dates that have been set aside to say that, things will be finalized. I think, the difference this year is that, these CDC recommendations are out there, and it's going to be up to districts to adopt them.
Okay. And are you anticipating doing any kind of community forums or sort of like we had last summer? So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Absolutely. So as soon as we get the plans finalized, and I think time is everything, somewhere within those last 2 weeks of August, I'll do both a staff and a parent Zoom meeting like we did last year, open it up. And then for people who can't attend, Julie will be there. She'll tape it. We'll put it on, and then we'll certainly have the corresponding PowerPoints available on our website.
Okay.
So yeah, we certainly want people to be well aware, and so for example, that wearing the mask on the bus is, we've got to get that communicated clearly. If that's going to stay in place, it's a little contradictory for our 8th graders and our high school students who, if they're vaccinated, don't think they need to wear masks, and then in fact they do have to wear them on a bus. So we're going to have to get the clarity around that and clearly communicate that to our students and parents.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't say this, but I will anyway. I'm surprised at that one. I'm not sure it follows the science.
Maybe you can convince them.
Yeah, probably not. But I could threaten them. All right.
Yeah, that as I think about that regulation, it has to do with all public transportation, and they consider school buses to be public transportation, and that's why the masks are required. I think as I read that, planes, trolleys, buses for the public, masks are required, and school buses fall into that.
Yeah, I think it's probably an issue of needing to draw a bright line when maybe some nuance would have been more appropriate. So anyway, as I said, I'm not really good at convincing people, but I'm pretty good at threatening them. So. Diane, you had your hand up, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because I had seen the press conference with the governor and the commissioner of RIDE, Fonte Green. This was probably close to 2 weeks ago now, and they did say that it was a federal requirement that masks be worn on the buses, and it is in keeping with public transportation in general, planes, trains, all of that. They also said, however, and this is something, Dr. Sanquioni, I'd like you to either confirm or look into, they also said that the spacing requirement would no longer apply in buses.
That is correct.
So our concerns over being able to accommodate children should be going away with this coming school year.
Right.
That all the children will be on the buses, the masks will be on, and the windows will again be open.
You are correct. There's no restrictions on bus. We can be at full capacity. You're right. Windows are open depending on the weather, like they were last year.
And they also, during that press conference, made it very clear that the rest of the guidance is up to the individual LEAs. We make our own policies.
They did make that clear. Yes, they did.
They did, but it was before the CDC came out with this guidance. So I think that is.
The CDC has been crystal clear that this is what they're recommending.
Yep. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Elaine, any questions or comments?
I only have one question, and that's regarding mask wearing for adults and students. How are we going to be sure that students who come in with no masks, or teachers or other adults in the buildings, have been fully vaccinated? Do we have a watchdog? Do they bring their white card? I have this problem going into a store. I don't go into many stores, but there's signs in different stores that say the same thing. If you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask, but if you're not, you must wear a mask. How do they know? They don't, you've got to be honest. It's the honor system. But we're talking about schools and students and teachers, and how are we going to know if students come in without masks that they've been fully vaccinated? And the same goes for adults, because there are adults and, or maybe older students who won't wear the masks. You know, is it just trust?
No, we require them to provide proof of vaccination for many things. So I would think we would require them to
Some
provide.
kind of documentation.
Right, we
Yeah.
are allowed to ask for documentation.
Good.
and
No,
proof
that
of
makes me
documentation.
feel better. Thank you.
And we do that for measles, mumps, rubella, polio. You can't come to school.
Right.
Vaccinations.
That's all I have. That's the only question I have.
Mike,
No questions, thank you.
and any questions for our administrators? What happened to Deb? Did she drop out? Yes, so.
Yeah, she had to leave, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. Any questions from the public, Ally?
No, not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. All right, well, stay tuned. Thank you, Peter. So we're item up to item 6, announcements, scheduled meetings, reports. Our next scheduled meeting is August 10th. I don't know if we'll need another meeting beforehand. Maybe we will. That's all I have to say. Anybody else? Any comments?
Dr. Larkin, would it make sense to poll the group to see if there would be availability for a meeting on the 27th should it become necessary?
I guess that would make sense. Probably why I didn't think of it. Mike and Elaine, would you be available the 27th?
At this time, I am.
Mike,
I am also available.
Peter, does that work for you?
That works, Dr. Larkin.
All right. Amy Roderick, does that work for you? So I think we'll probably be talking about money. So put that in your dance card. I
Or the
guess.
lack of it.
Yes. So, all right. So if we're going to have another meeting, I guess we'll tentatively set it for the 27th. And we'll see what happens. All right. Then with any other announcements or reports, then I'm going to ask for motion to move into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42, 46, 582, and 7, public funds litigation budget.
I'll make that motion.
Dr. Larkin,
Yes.
I will be recusing.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Diane's recusing, Deb is gone. Elaine,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we're in executive session.